Welcome back to Talk Tuah. We're your hosts. I'm Pete.
I'm Cam.
And today we are breaking down the premiere pilot episode of This Is Gavin Newsom. The governor of California, now in his 6th year of being governor, he has decided to launch a podcast. And we couldn't be more excited. I mean, it is cause for celebration to see one of the top political players in the game right now embrace podcasting, get into the medium, try to shake things up. And yeah, this was a pretty shaked up episode.
Well, it's important to know Gavin is, the governor of the 5th largest economy in the world.
Yeah.
So he's been building up his fan base through politics. And the thing is, podcasting can be a tricky industry to break into.
That's true. That's so true.
But again, building up his audience, politically, then he can start transferring that into his podcasting career, which is ultimately where you want to be.
Yeah. And I mean, in just his first episode, he enlisted none other than social media savant Charlie Kirk. He's known for, more conservative, reactionary politics.
He's a podcaster nonetheless.
He is. Yeah, he's a diehard podcaster, which incredibly admirable. And I mean, he came on ready to podcast with Gavin, and they get into the politics of podcasting which is really exciting to us to be able to break down that. But yeah, this was a pretty lively conversation. A lot of back and forth. Definitely more forth from Charlie to Gavin, and Gavin doing like a little bit of back. Charlie took the lead on this episode. I'll say that.
Well, let's not beat around the bush. The podcast is called This Is Gavin Newsom. But really, maybe they should have edited it to say, this is Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Because we don't know much about our host. Again, we might know him from his previous role of being a governor of California. But again, when you're podcasting, you have to assert, this is who I am. This is what's going on,
Yeah. I mean, the episode title was, and this is Charlie Kirk, like a play on the title. But I think realistically, these names should have been swapped because this was Charlie's show for episode 1.
And you know what? At the end of the episode, this is how the episode gets bookmarked. He opens it up saying, this is Gavin Newsom. This is Charlie Kirk.
This is Gavin Newsom. And this is Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
Charlie Kirk dominates throughout the episode. And then at the end, Gavin shakes his hand and says, thanks for having me on.
Thank you.
This was fun.
Thanks, man.
Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Or whatever. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having.
Yeah.
A little slip of the tongue.
Yeah. I presume this was in Gavin's home or a studio that Gavin rented.
I'm sure it was in a nice Airbnb in Palo Alto.
He catches himself. Like he knows, this is my show. I didn't mean to cede that ground.
But so those are, the pillars of, how this starts and how it ends.
Yeah.
And you're going to see us as we talk about through this episode, how we get there. But ultimately, Gavin's going to need to put in the time, going to need to put in the work. I think it's a tricky time in California right now. We just had the most expensive fires in human history.
Just in Los Angeles.
So hopefully he can just really wrap that up so then he can focus on podcasting.
Yeah, I'm sure it's taken a lot out of him. And yeah, look, podcasting is tough. Gavin, I mean, we're very supportive of your endeavors here. It just, you learn episode to episode. You just pick up new skills and you kind of hone your craft. And I'm excited to see where Gavin goes with this. But yeah, episode 1.
Do you think that Charlie was a good guest for the pilot podcast here? Do you think that Gavin should have just done a solo episode to bring us into his world? Because this is Gavin Newsom.
Yeah.
We're not learning much about him. It's more of a political back and forth or sparring about a whole range of issues.
Yeah. Well, he's starting out on a tough, a bit of a sour note for him, career-wise, politically-wise, just because, we're coming off pretty contentious election in 2024, and Gavin was really asking for advice from Charlie a lot of the episode, and asking where did things go wrong.
What's your thoughts?
That's okay.
If you were in my camp, I'm
not going to give you my best advice.
I'll give you
the.
What do you do?
Please.
What do you do? Seriously, Charlie Kirk, give us some
Get
advice.
better ideas, Governor.
Very much an apt pupil type
Yes.
situation.
Yeah, and so I think I mean he's trying to do some soul searching, bringing on a guy who's at the top of his podcasting game.
Well, think about it. He's 31.
Yeah.
Right? Charlie.
Yeah.
And he makes 25 times the amount of money that Gavin makes.
And here's a guy who makes 25 times more money than I do.
Yeah.
25 times more money than the governor of the 5th largest economy in the world. So he's thinking to himself, maybe this guy can show me how to get some like, Cash App deals.
Yeah.
Maybe I could do some ads for like MoonPay or something.
Yes. Yeah. Some HelloFresh. And so Gavin is like, yeah, he seems like to be lost at sea a little bit. He's a bit adrift and looking for any kind of comfort from Charlie that things could be okay for him, that podcasting is this new frontier that he can take on readily and conquer. And, Charlie's not really giving it to him that easy. I mean, Charlie's pretty stern.
He is. And I almost wonder, though, how much of this really was scripted beat-wise for, the first season of his podcast, right? Because you have to start with a hero's journey. Gavin's been, thrown into this whole new world, a world of podcasting.
Yeah.
He's at his lowest point, right?
Yeah.
He's saying the Democratic Party is in shambles.
Yeah.
How do I fix it? What do I do? How do I get my podcast career started?
Yeah.
And, ultimately, I think watching him grow, Gavin Newsom, throughout this season, I think is going to be incredible. I think it's a great setup.
Yeah.
And maybe it'll end with Charlie coming back on and saying, so you took some of my advice.
Yes. Like mentor to mentee.
Yes. And here we are.
Yeah. That would be an awesome finale to the season. Look, I mean, I don't know if much of it is scripted. I mean, they take a no editing pledge at one point.
Do we have ultimate editing here? I'm going to.
No, you better not edit any of this for the record.
We're not going to edit any of this.
Which I know we noted that as we watched the episode. It seems a little bit awry to say no editing because, there is always editing in a podcast unless it's a live recording because ultimately you have to stitch together the two camera angles and do a lot of cutting back and forth.
Even if you're not cutting anything out, you have to say, okay, the shot is on Gavin.
Yeah.
Now I'm editing this. Now the shot is on Charlie.
Yeah.
That's an edit.
And then you have to export at the end and then upload.
So they broke their oath. If we really wanted to hold their feet to the fire here on a technical term and say, look, guys, this podcast was edited.
Yeah.
In the future, just do a Twitch live stream or something.
Yeah. But I presume that they just meant this is a raw recording. Like this is us in the moment. We're not cutting stuff out. And boy, was it raw.
I have to say though, before we get into the weeds of this too much, we need to be transparent with our audience.
Yeah.
About what goes on behind the scenes. Our podcast, I think we should admit, is edited.
Yeah.
There's times where we're going to cough.
Yeah.
Something's going to happen, a sneeze. We're going to cut that out.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because I want our listeners to have
feel comfortable,
to have the best experience possible listening to a podcast.
Yeah. That's why we put some effects on the audio to make it sound more glamorous and easy to hear.
We do a multicam setup. We shoot 4K with a wide cam and we punch in about 25%.
Yeah. So this is us pledging an editing oath. Like we do edit.
We do edit and we will edit.
Yeah.
Because sometimes maybe we're going to get off track. And guess what? That's not very comfortable for a podcast listener. No, is it?
No.
It's rude.
Yes. Because
it's disrespectful.
Yeah. I mean, I assume our listeners are listening to our podcast anywhere, like in the car, or maybe they're going to bed with our podcast playing.
Or waking up in the morning. I mean, I set my ringtone to be a podcast.
Oh, really? What podcast are you listening to?
I'm not telling.
Okay, well, let's just break down like how this episode starts. So we open up with a title card explaining this is Gavin Newsom. You see the iHeartRadio, or I think it's just iHeart in the bottom right.
Yeah, this was an incredible, incredible moment seeing that our governor, because keep in mind, if you're not familiar with us, we're recording in the city of Los Angeles in the state of California.
Yeah.
Our tax dollars are going into this podcast, and I could not be more proud.
Yes.
Into an iHeart project.
Yes. I think technically this was a very impressive podcast, a great premiere episode. And yeah, I mean, this title card was really nice to bring us in. There's like some nice poppy music.
There's poppy music. There's a cool like green, yellow gradient.
Yeah. And it's vibrant. I think it's blue and yellow.
It's tropical.
I think it was blue and yellow, maybe like Rams coated.
I'm a little colorblind, but it looked great to me regardless of what colors it were.
Yeah. And I mean, Gavin welcomes us in. He like beckons us in. He goes, "This is Gavin Newsom. And today's guests are like this, and this is Charlie Kirk." Like he's leading up our guest. And then we fade into the set and we see the two of them in their chairs. And it's like a great debate kind of standoff, which it becomes a debate for much of the episode. But Just a note on the decor, we see some nice bookshelves. I think it's maybe 2 bookshelves pushed together in the center of the room. On Gavin's side, there's a number of books.
Yeah, why don't you list off some?
Yeah, so we took the time to note that in the stack over Gavin's shoulder is The Curious Movie Buff, a little homage to Hollywood, I believe, just, as the governor of California at large.
He knows what's made in his state.
Yeah.
That was a nice little wink and nod, huh?
Yeah. We got From Soul to Soul, which is about the Adidas sneakers of Jacques Chassaing.
Okay.
I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Didn't know Gavin was a hype beast, but that's good to know.
Yeah. And then we got Obama plus Springsteen. The two of them, they collabed on this blockbuster book in recent years called Renegades.
Was that a nod to his podcast?
To Bruce Springsteen and Obama's?
That's right.
Yeah, they got a nice podcast. So maybe that would be a cool collab. Maybe getting the two of them in his Palo Alto Airbnb to record could be a cool episode.
Well, I think it kind of shows, Newsom's aspirations here, in the industry. I mean, Obama was president. Look where he got,
Yeah.
top charting podcast.
And, Charlie tries to hold Gavin's feet to the fire later on in the episode and be like, look, everyone knows you're going to run for president.
I could design your presidential run in a way
I'm
where
not
you
talking
would
about
win.
a president. We're not talking about presidential run. This is not about that.
It's a free space on the bingo card. And Gavin's like, that's not, you can't assume that. He's playing a little coy, but it feels, a little bit sidereal, like that Gavin will probably rise up and run for president almost as another Californian representative.
Well, if he wants a top charting podcast, he needs to secure the presidency, and then he could put in 4 years, do whatever you need to do, and then boom. Think about the sponsors that start rolling in.
You don't think he could podcast while president?
No, if anything, the presidency now is just a stepping stone to a podcast.
Well, of course, but I think they could work in tandem. I think podcasting while in office is a greater show of strength. And
well, where's Trump's podcast?
Well, that's a good question. I'd love to see it.
Do you think Charlie Kirk is really, hammering it home with Trump to say, hey, we got to get some mics in here. We got to, get a good audio setup.
Yeah. Look, it won him the election going on podcasts. Why not start his own?
What do you think why do you think he's holding back?
I'm sure he is busy, and that's the issue. When you become president, I'm sure you're busy with all these random things that pop up. But
hold on now, because I want to push back on that.
Okay.
Newsom, again, is dealing with the most expensive fires in human history.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just
California there's so much going on right now, and Newsom found time to podcast.
Well, that's what I'm saying is that's a testament to his work ethic.
You're saying that we don't know how much Trump really even cares about the podcast format anymore, the medium.
Yeah, he might not be as pod-minded as Gavin is, but I think
that's going to hurt him in the midterms.
I think it definitely could. There's a risk to playing politics that way, to kind of shy away from podcasts. It's just, I don't know. It's not a good look to voters.
No, not at all. Because you want strength in office, someone that's going to be able to have on fruitful conversation.
And that's right.
For at least 2 hours plus. We get into it later in this episode about how podcasting is a masculine format.
Democrats cannot survive in long-form podcasting environments.
Why?
It's too unscripted. It's too masculine, honestly.
But what we're seeing is that Newsom is actually holding weight here.
Yeah, he holds his own as best he can against, a podcasting machine like Charlie. But again, this comes out to a measly 1 hour and 11-minute episode, and
Sure.
I think Charlie would kind of smirk at that.
Of course, but it's got to be baby steps, and we're going to get there. But let's just I want to
go
finish
back to the rest of the book stack.
Okay.
Right below the Renegades book, we got Drives of a Lifetime, which looks like a National Geographic publication.
Well, we have an awesome highway that runs up the Pacific coast, so I'm sure that's a reference to, again, the Golden State.
Yeah, and we also got the 5, goes through Bakersfield.
That's right.
And then the last book on the in the stack is Bunny Melon Style, which, I don't know much about this. I guess it's fashion, which, fashion plays a big role in the entertainment industry here. So maybe another wink and a nod from Gavin on that selection for his book pile.
Well, besides his books, though, I think he has a keen eye for abstract art.
Yeah.
Above his head and Charlie's is some really cool kind of circle line paintings. They almost look like those, the little messages that the aliens drew
In Arrival.
in Arrival,
Yeah.
like the squid things.
Almost a bit Rorschachian in a sense.
But it's quite the comparison with the brutalist, interior design, especially with the colors and lighting. You have two lamps that are pretty minimal.
Yeah.
And these, dark gray spaces.
Yeah. And then these big leather chairs that are rounded.
Yeah, little lounge chairs that can rotate. We know they can move because Charlie is fidgeting this episode and he's moving around.
Yeah. He's pretty lively.
And then, they have mic stands. They have like a kind of neutral carpet. But
it's important to note the mic stands because those come up time and time again this episode. Because rather than having the Gavin and Charlie hold the mics, or have the mics propped up on like maybe an arm stand on their chairs, these things are set up on looks like tripods in front of them, and they're just dangling there, not really sandbagged down or anything.
No sandbags. And also the mics are pointed in the strangest angles.
Yeah, they don't quite look like they're pointed at Charlie or Gavin's voice boxes or mouths.
Do you think they're wearing secret lav mics? There's a plant mic somewhere, or even they have a boom recorder?
Well, their audio is plenty crisp enough that I do think that maybe there was a secondary sound source.
Well, Charlie was fidgeting.
Yeah.
He was moving around this episode, and this was a brutal start to the episode, especially coming from someone that is so prolific with his podcast and entertainment. He knocks over the mic stand in the first 20 seconds.
Yeah.
By the way, what brings you to California, your favorite state?
It is this thing's falling. It is my favorite state in the union.
It starts to lean and then falls. That was a hard watch.
It was
First 20 seconds. I
Yeah.
mean, the first cut to him, and he knocks it over.
Yeah, he's already squirming outside the box, and I think he looked a little embarrassed, a little meek about that, but Gavin didn't really press on it, and he righted the stand, and they got into it.
But that was a mistake.
It was a mistake.
That was a mistake that Gavin didn't reprimand him right then and there, because then it happened again.
Yeah.
Organization, and it became far more successful than I ever could have realized. And
Put something there.
It happened again, and this is what happens when there's no... that's the thing. Charlie Kirk, his politics, it's, tough on crime, this and that, no second chances. It's
very punitive.
Come on, you're knocking over... You're literally damaging someone else's property.
Yeah.
But, the conversation starts off, Charlie definitely making a dent with the youth.
You were just down at USC?
I was at USC yesterday, drew a big crowd. We had a goal. Could we move the youth vote 10 points over 10 years?
This is a big part of his character. He likes to hang out on college campuses. Now, as a 31-year-old man with a family, I think that's totally normal.
Yeah. He's going to these campuses to absolutely destroy and eviscerate any kind of liberal thought mind on campus. Anyone who wants to come up and challenge him, he'll smack them right back.
Totally.
And then he'll upload it to TikTok, and those perform beautifally.
The ones that he smacks the hell out of them.
Yeah.
I haven't seen one in the reverse, and I'm sure they don't exist.
No. It's, he's made a fruitful career out of it, and Gavin is applauding him for a bit, saying that, hey, hell, Charlie, my son was wondering when you were going to be coming on the show because he wanted to skip school and be able to meet you.
Literally last night, trying to put my son to bed. He's like, no, Dad, what time? What time's Charlie going to be here? And I'm like, dude, you're in school tomorrow. He's 13.
Did you let him take off school?
No, he did. Of course not. He's not here for a good reason. But the point is
You canceled school for 2 years. One day.
The point is the point.
And Charlie's like, well, did you let him? You shut down schools for 2 years, a reference to the pandemic.
Come on, already making it political.
Yeah.
What is it? What does he think this is?
Gavin's just trying to give him his flowers and say, look, you got my son.
Yeah.
My son is so enthralled by your content and wants to meet you. And Charlie's like, well, I'll take this as an opportunity to take a dig at you.
Just punch him in the face.
Yeah, just let him off school so he could meet me. But Gavin's like, rules are rules. Got to abide by, the school system. And so Gavin's son was not there, but apparently a big fan.
Well, I do really think it's cool that Charlie hangs out most of his time on, school campuses.
Yeah.
I'm sure he knows the best insomnia cookie spots.
Yeah.
I'm sure he is just, I'm sure he's on a first name basis. Any Blaze Pizza he walks into.
I was just about to say.
They know him. They know the order.
Yeah.
Ready to go.
Yeah.
Do you think he sits in on classes ever?
Well, that's interesting because he says that he's never gone to college. He's never gotten a 4-year degree. And I mean, he spends so much time on college campuses. I think like at this point, he's probably due for an honorary degree of some kind.
From at least 13 different schools.
Yeah. And I don't know. I feel like he should take the opportunity to sit in on some of these classes.
Yeah.
I'm sure he could probably get some honorary credits and sit in.
Now, if anything, do you think it would just be easier if he, became an RA on some of these campuses?
Yeah, that could maybe expedite
that way
the
he could
process.
just live in the dorm. Because again, I'm thinking in terms of like, he goes to these college campuses, right?
Yeah.
He's filming awesome content all day long on an iPhone, right? And then he has to go home to his wife and kids.
Yeah.
He has to drive all the way back, all the way there.
Not to mention like editing it to upload it.
Well, and I'm sure nothing is cut out. Again, it's
but
just the
I mean,
editing
just
of,
Yeah, of course.
But again, for such a practical guy that's so solution based and, he's very, black and white thinking in a sense of like, he wants to get to the objective truth of things.
Yeah.
The objective truth is, buddy, if you want to save some time, just get a dorm.
Yeah.
I'm sure he could bunk with some kids there. I bet they'd all be cool with it.
Of course. I think he'd probably be a chill RA.
He'd be the chillest. Charlie is the type of dude you would want. I mean, you're blazing up there. He catches you. He's going to be... He'll throw you out. I mean, no broken windows, because you know what that
he'll do it
leads
in a
to.
chill way.
Yeah.
And you'll feel like, okay, that was on me.
Totally. But I'm sure he's getting his steps in on campus.
Yeah.
That's got to be awesome.
Yeah, gotta be sick. So, I mean, he's got a fulfilling career, and Gavin's picked up on it, and hell, it's why he invited him. Gavin cannot, stress this enough that Charlie has put a dent in the Democrats' plans.
The point, which is you are making a damn dent.
Thank you. I'm kidding. Of course.
No, but
Thank you.
but I appreciate that. I mean, it's the reason you're here, because I think people need to understand your success, your influence, what you've been up to, and the fact that you're on these college campus tours.
It's almost like they're like, we would have gotten away with it too. Whatever plans they have, if it weren't for you, Charlie Kirk, and you meddling college visits.
That's
and
right.
So he can't praise him enough. Charlie, he takes the praise, but he just says that he like does it for the love of the game. He said he's been doing it since like 2012, a very long time, and he gets a kick out of just schooling these kids.
That's right. I mean, he's very pedagogically oriented with his free time. Now, he's very concerned with the fact that young people are hurting, especially young men are hurting. He brings it up here, but I didn't really hear any solutions. I mean, he kind of just said, young people are disenfranchised.
Yeah.
They're more isolated and alienated than ever before, but he doesn't really give any aid. Do you think he's... Again, the thing with this guy is he doesn't want to spill all those secrets in the podcast.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if he has something really awesome up his sleeve.
Certainly some tricks.
Yeah.
And Gavin's just trying to, cozy up, get close to him. He's asking Charlie about his political trajectory. Charlie talks about, he's been doing it since 2012, like I mentioned, but he explains that he started out as more libertarian, but then he got married.
Was more libertarian, I'd say, in the first couple of years, as to be expected. As I got married and have kids, become more conservative.
And I think that turned him more Republican. I think like having to acknowledge the institution of marriage, maybe.
Yeah, that's definitely gonna, put a foil in your plans as libertarian,
But now he is more so Republican. But he says he still clings to some libertarian ideas, and Charlie, he's talking about how influential Trump was, because I guess Charlie was really kind of adrift at sea back in 2012, trying to preach the teachings of Rand and Ron Paul to smaller audiences. And then I think when...
he was on the fringe side of things.
Yeah. And when Trump got on the scene, I think it helped Charlie, get the confidence to go up to more and more of these kids and just start schooling them more.
Well, because, he was mystified when Trump came down that escalator in 2016 and he was talking about that.
I was mystified at first, but I was not mystified negatively. I was like, can this really happen?
Yeah, he said this felt like a pipe dream. Like seeing this guy come down the elevator, could this really be real?
What's important to note for Charlie, a lot of things he thought possible weren't possible. If you look at his life, I mean, he couldn't get into West Point. He talked about that being a big dream for him.
Yeah.
He didn't get in. He was rejected by this institution. And so he said, I'm just going to have to take things into my own hands, start my own media empire.
Well, yeah, he became the one thing better than a troop, which is an entrepreneur.
That's right.
and now a podcaster. So he has truly just climbed the ladder. I mean, God pulled the one ladder of troopdom away from him, and he had sent him on the mission, the lifelong mission of entrepreneurship and now podcasting ship. And I mean, yeah, he has truly earned all the flowers.
I mean, he has Turning Point, his
Yeah.
Turning Point Action, then he has the Charlie Kirk Show.
Yeah, two incredible institutions for right-wing intellectualism. And then I will say at 5:45, bit of a misstep. The mic stand falls over on him a second time. And that's when a mic stand specialist has to be brought in.
Organization, and it became far more successful than I ever could have realized. And
Put something there.
the kind of as we started to grow the organization, I recognized that there was a ideological imbalance on a lot of these college campuses.
And, Gavin's talking to him. We cut to Gavin.
And we wanted to go about trying to offer a counterpoint of conservative,
And Gavin's like kind of just watching this happen, clearly like can't focus on the conversation with the specialist there. And then when we cut back to Charlie's angle, that specialist is gone. He's disappeared.
So it did take anywhere from 5 to 15 seconds
Yeah.
to rectify that huge fuck up.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to call it what it was. This actually angered me because this is a taxpayer funded project.
That's true.
Now we have to hire, get some union mic
guy.
stand specialist
Yeah.
to come in here and fix this thing because Charlie can't keep his hands to himself. He can't keep his feet to himself.
Yeah.
He's knocking over mic stands.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Was this a blatant assault on Gavin Newsom at this point? Just attacking his podcast physically? He was lashing out like a toddler.
I mean, it's an assault on California taxpayers. Like, whether he had that in mind or not, it's like, at the end of the day, that is coming out of our pockets.
This is why I always fight for, if you're going to have a mic stand, do not put it in front of someone. You want to have it to the side and then coming up and over.
Yeah.
So you can't, and then sandbag that thing down with at least, 40 to 50 pounds of
Yeah.
weight. It's sad, but that's what you need to do. Now, you don't need that for everyone. I mean, look at Newsom. He didn't knock over his mic stand,
Yeah.
but he knows where those tax dollars are coming from, and maybe he can respect the fact a little bit more that he's like, when you have to get a mic stand specialist in, this guy's rate is what? Probably, $2,500 an hour
Easily, yeah.
to pick up a, fallen mic stand.
Yeah.
That's
I mean,
ridiculous.
It's a pain in the ass for us.
Yeah. And he's got to throw out his back to pick that up.
And it also just soils the podcast a little bit. Like, that really, I mean, that was one blip on the technical record of this awesome premiere episode, but it was a big blip.
It was a massive blip. Are you kidding me?
And I just wish we could have had that figured out.
And
before
who
they hit
knows if
record.
now the XLR cable is damaged.
Yeah.
That mic could have been, that might be busted now.
Yeah.
There's just so much consequence from, kicking a mic, hitting a mic. What's the solution for this? I'm not asking that he wears a straitjacket every time he comes in to record a podcast with Gavin Newsom, but it's like, come on.
Yeah. At a certain point, something's got to change.
But both guys were handsy during this. They were making all kind of hand gestures.
Yeah.
Sign language. They were talking to each other. Newsom would do these clam hands.
I kind of wonder if they were doing shadow puppets to each other.
Yeah. At one point, Charlie was doing like finger guns.
Yeah, akimbo style.
He was punching his hand.
Yeah.
Newsom was doing little mouse.
Like he
kind
was
of,
like trying to strike a fire or something with his wrists.
Yeah.
Pretty handsy. And it was like a secondary show on top of the podcast.
I liked it.
Yeah. For the video listeners, there's just, you're watching these guys converse, but at the same time, their hands are telling even like another story, a richer, deeper story almost.
Well, look, 10 minutes into the podcast, we're talking about SAT versus ACT scores.
Yeah.
960 SAT. I asked you about your SAT.
I don't
You
even
said,
know. I
the hell
took
is
the
that?
ACT.
You
I
took
don't-
the
yeah.
ACT.
On a premiere podcast episode with the governor of California to be talking about something this important, while so much is going on in California, to me is incredible because SAT versus ACT, that's a massive, that's a whole world of difference,
Yeah, I mean, Gavin's message discipline is extraordinary.
Yeah.
And getting to talk about his SAT scores, trying to pull out Charlie's score from him, but Charlie wouldn't give it up. He kept saying,
he's tight-lipped.
He kept saying, I'm from the Midwest, Illinois. We're more of an ACT region.
So that's more open-ended, right?
Yeah.
An SAT is more of that standardized multiple choice.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so. I never took the ACT.
Newsom is more old school. I never took the ACT either. I remember we had the choice.
Did we take both? Could you do that?
You could take both. I only took the SAT.
Okay.
But again, this is riveting conversation on a podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Charlie kind of brought up, on the topic of intellectualism, conservatives are representing more of the muscular
class of America.
You guys have become so college credentialed and educated that you guys snobbishly look on the muscular class of this country.
He was saying that, look, in 2016, if you're wearing a MAGA hat on a college campus, people are going to say, what the hell's going on with this guy? But they've had to now double down on that to be tough.
Yeah.
And now they're owning it.
Yeah.
And they have that muscle. I mean, this is a tale as old as time, right?
Yeah.
More, conservative leaning jobs are more manufacturing, trucking, like physically doing shit, getting shit done.
Yeah. And Trump is the perfect figurehead for this.
Right. He's a billionaire from New York City.
Yeah. And so Charlie's like, it's crazy how the script has flipped. Like, Democrats felt like they could maybe, take away some of those muscular class votes, but, they've gone so intellectual. They're so heady now. They're just taking college course after college course, really insulating themselves further and further into these bubbles of the elite.
Bubbles of the elite. And that's the thing that people like Charlie really get upset about, because they're saying, look, there's so much nepotism too.
Yeah.
We're on the left. You can be an actor. You can be a writer, a philosopher, a teacher. You can be an artist. You can do all these things that are fun jobs.
Yeah.
And you get to give back to the community, and you get to be highlighted in kind of a fan base, and people really like it.
Yeah.
Traditionally, I think for more conservative jobs, you're doing them, they're tough. You don't really have a fan base.
No.
It's not really that fun. So for a lot of people, they can join the military and feel like they're giving back through something where, okay, now I'm like an artist, like you get to be a part of a community, whatever.
Yeah.
But, as far as nepotism goes, they can't get into a lot of those jobs. Now things are really changed because we have podcasts.
Yes. It's
so
like a
now,
hybrid.
yes, it's the perfect, now, more right-leaning people can hop on a podcast, do something fun, and grow a fan base, and contribute to the world with awesome ideas.
Yeah, and it's masculine.
What is masculine about a podcast? Honestly, because I get the whole manosphere, this bro podcast.
To go
stuff.
into the wilderness with no rules and duel it out and see who's better or who's stronger. No, seriously.
That's
Which,
right.
it represents still the muscular class. I mean, this is just, you're talking shop when you get on the mic. It's just you, your microphone, and, your maybe opponent of wits across from you as you just try to explain your viewpoints, get them to agree with you, and it's a brawl of words.
No, I mean, there were definitely times where Charlie was throwing Gavin an intellectual half Nelson on the podcast.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I could be shirtless with you right now. I feel like I'm in Fight Club.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah, I was pretty revved up watching this too.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie said that Democrats can't survive in long format podcast environments because it's a masculine thing inherently.
Yeah.
It's two opponents duking it out, gladiatorial style, in the middle of the woods. It's treacherous. It's dangerous. And I think that's true. I think podcasting is a very masculine thing. I mean, you have two people sitting in a room with air conditioning,
Yeah.
talking about geopolitical decisions that affect, millions of people.
Yeah.
And, they have no one to help them, no one to save them. It's a one-on-one.
Yeah. And Charlie seems to be on a conquest for truth. I mean, it's like he takes this very seriously, and he tells Gavin to his face, like, look, you're not cut out for this. Like, I applaud you. You're getting into it. But everything up till now, you and the rest of your pity party of the Democrats, you're not cut out for this.
He's saying they should take some underwater basket weaving courses.
Yeah. And he's taking Gavin to task. He says, look, the closest one from your team to even put up any kind of numbers against us was Bernie Sanders. But even his podcasts that he would do are only like an hour and a half.
We don't do it. You're right. We, for whatever reason, don't do it.
You can laugh, but who in the Democrat Party?
We're not. You're right.
Will go. I mean, maybe Bernie Sanders, but he only went for like an hour and a half.
when he was a Democrat.
Yeah, short form. Even Bernie is not man enough to go, toe to toe with the length they want.
Doesn't have the endurance.
I mean, Lex Friedman is doing 8-hour podcasts.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah.
No skin off his back.
Joe's putting up 4-hour ditties.
No problem.
Yeah.
But I actually want to push back on Charlie right here.
Yeah, please do.
Because he said it was a very masculine thing to podcast, which I wholeheartedly agree with. But he's saying that to Gavin Newsom, who's sitting in his, Chelsea lounge chair with what looks like no pillow behind him. Charlie has a gray silk pillow on his back. Why would he have that pillow?
It looked plush.
But why would he have that? What is a pillow for?
Lumbar support, I guess.
Is it for comfortability?
Yeah.
So he wants to be, because he's uncomfortable in that chair. Take away the pillow. It should have been man on man.
It's a bad look.
Gavin's sitting there destroying his back.
Yeah.
God knows.
For the love of the game. This is his day one on the field, and already just ready to sacrifice his body, do what it takes.
Yeah.
And Charlie's just kind of sitting high and mighty, just so comfy on his leather and
with his little pillow.
throne.
How about take away that pillow?
Yeah.
And now they're really in the middle of the woods.
Yeah.
Now they're uncomfortable as hell on those chairs on top of that nice carpet.
Totally even playing field.
Yeah, because he had the advantage. He had the lumbar support.
Yeah.
Gavin had to be more stressed. Posture-wise, he was moving around. We saw him get up and adjust a couple of times.
Yeah,
we saw it.
Yeah.
So, again, he was thrown to the wolves right then and there. Charlie just had the one up.
Yeah.
So I don't think that was fair.
That wasn't.
I'd like to see them rematch, duke it out. No pillow for Gavin, no pillow for Charlie.
Yeah, Gavin was certainly stressed, and a couple times you catch him knocking his chair back, and it makes his water bottle wobble, which made me a little bit anxious as it started to wobble, teeter off the table that it was possibly on.
Also, we are recording in California, so it might have been,
seismic activity.
You don't know.
Yeah, I guess that is plausible, but Charlie, brings up now the next hot button issue is trust in institution and the divide in that between the Democrats and the Republicans. And, Democrats used to be lower trust in institutions. During the Bush years, there was a lot less trust in institutions like the NSA, George Bush, the
Patriot Act.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff. And the roles have really flipped. I think post-COVID, Charlie kind of pinpoints it as that is like, now Republicans are the ones who have less trust in institutions, which over the vaccine, shutdowns, everything else, while Democrats are they cling to these institutions almost, is what he would argue.
And you can even see it in the podcasting environment, right? I mean, a lot of left-leaning people are more trusting of podcast networks, whereas conservative people, more so they're doing their own thing.
Yeah.
They're creating their own network, their own empire. They don't want to put it on iHeart. Gavin trusts those guys, but you don't know what backdoor deal. I mean, if let's say iHeart gets Newsom a really nice Blue Apron ad or something, what if they're taking 10, 15% of that revenue?
Yeah, it's not worth trusting.
Right?
Yeah.
But, Gavin doesn't have any ads yet, so we'll have to wait for him to grow to that point.
Yeah.
But, they were talking about institutions, and then they got back into schools. And Charlie made the point that 4-year degrees are going to be going away in 10 years anyway, thanks to AI. So we're not even going to have college.
Are you arguing for the disestablishment, the end of higher education?
I think it's going to happen no matter what. I mean, in 10 years, artificial intelligence is going to change everything.
Yeah. While Democrats have really hoarded, the elite vote, all these intellectuals, that's all going away soon, thanks to AI.
But that struck me as a harrowing moment because Charlie didn't even realize that his own job is going to be going away.
Yeah.
Because if colleges go away,
if they have to shutter,
if there's no more college campuses, what happens to all the 17-year-old friends he's made over these past 10 years? Just debating them. Where's he going to go?
Yeah, I don't know if he's going to have to pivot exclusively to TikTok comments. I don't know.
Who's he going to debate though?
It scares me.
That really made me emotional because the idea of this 31-year-old podcaster not being able to hang out with kids and make content.
When in 10 years' time, being 41 and kind of that adrift at sea, that's got to be tough. I having to find a career change at that point. I think he'll pivot to TikTok. I want to believe in.
What do you mean pivot to TikTok?
Look, it's not the same, but maybe he can debate kids in the comments and school them.
No,
there.
it's not the same. He needs to be destroying them on campus on their way to the cafeteria.
Well, of course, it'd be more fun. Yeah.
Why isn't he fighting AI if it's going to take his job? Does he just not know? Is he, gleefully
I think
ignorant?
He's a big
He doesn't want to
proponent of
look
AI.
himself in the mirror.
I think so. I think he might be thinking he's taking a bullet for the team. Like, he knows that AI is going to shepherd us all into a grander future.
Well, those chickens are going to come home to roost, and it's going to be ugly.
Look, it's going to be tough at first. Like, losing that kind of work, going to college campuses and just absolutely eviscerating these kids. That's going to
Could he debate
That's going to be
AI?
a hole in his heart.
Could he debate AI? Is that his master plan?
Unless AI has purple hair and a nose ring, I just don't think it's going to have the payoff visually.
Well, for Charlie's sake, I hope that AI, does not conquer our scholarly institutions.
Yeah.
But, he talked about how, with schools, what's the big deal anyway? He says, is North African lesbian poetry really a four-year degree worth getting?
Well, you go to Caltech to study computer engineering and applied AI.
Next
man,
level.
You're crushing it, right? You go to Cal to go study North African lesbian poetry.
Yeah.
Like,
Is that an actual degree there?
you tell me, Governor.
I don't know. I mean, we funded, but I'm not sure that's one of
See,
the
the
courses.
fact you don't know.
Well, I don't know every single damn
I
course.
know.
Yeah.
And to that point, I say, well, have you ever sat in on any North African lesbian poetry classes?
I personally haven't. I had some pretty enlightening classes at my time in college, but not that specific niche. No.
My school didn't offer it, and I wish it did.
Yeah.
Because again, don't knock it till you try it.
Yeah.
And, he might hear some North African lesbian poetry and realize he really likes it.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a field he'd want to work in. I don't know.
That's the beauty of something like that. It can really change your worldview and, get you to open up to new perspectives and learn about, life at large.
Well, he also made the point that I forget the number, it was like 50-something percent, 60% of college kids don't even get a job in the field that they studied. So it's also not as scary as he thinks.
Yeah.
Because say you're interested in North African lesbian poetry, you get that degree. It doesn't mean you have to get a job in that field. It could just be a fun thing you're interested in.
Yeah.
And then you could go work in whatever.
Yeah. Mechanics.
That's right. Or, be a big tech guy or something. But you could always have that cool background.
Yeah.
And look, Charlie just said that's not something he wants to fund with taxpayer dollars.
Yeah, of course not.
But we have to remember that he was once a hard-nosed libertarian. So he thinks taxpayer dollars should only be used to support, the military, which can protect your, pursuit of freedom and liberty, or podcasts to be able to talk about that.
That sounds right. And Gavin then brings the conversation back to, praising Charlie on his TikTok presence, how he's really built and solidified a base of obliterated kids on there. Like, I think he's, by force, he's gotten these kids to respect him and probably toss him a lot of follows on TikTok. And Charlie's pretty shy about the compliments. He doesn't really accept the flowers that Gavin's given him. Instead, he keeps singing Trump's praises.
When you go to these college campuses, I love watching your TikTok, which is next level. And clearly, that's expressed by my 13-year-old son.
I want to meet this guy.
Yeah, you figured something out.
It's not me. The president first deserves the credit.
But why? No, hold on. You were at this before Trump was Trump.
I know, but
he was a Democrat back in 2011 and 12.
The president deserves huge credit. And I just have to say that as an obligatory thing, because without him, our movement would be small.
That's right. He was saying, oh, no, we got to give our thanks to Trump. Oh, no, Trump did all the work. Trump this, Trump that. And I just wanted to stop and scream and say, Charlie, you're the one going to college campuses, annihilating 17-year-olds, completely shoving their face in dog dirt.
Yeah.
Not Trump. I don't see Trump putting in the time, the work, the effort to make the kind of content that you're making, okay? Trump's playing golf.
Yeah, he
in
went
Mar-a-Lago.
He went on 4 or 5 selected podcasts during his campaign trail, and I'm glad he embraced podcasts, but he's not doing some of the other hard work, and he's not doing building out his own podcast. The way Charlie has.
And the president needs to be a podcaster. I'm sorry, Trump's not putting in the work.
No,
it's letting me down. It's letting you down. It's letting most of America down.
Yeah,
because we deserve a president that has time to podcast and actually cares about it.
Yeah.
And Charlie is the one that cares about it.
Yeah.
So why is he being so hard on himself? Why do you think that is?
I guess he's just humble. It's a matter of humility, and he just
it's a matter of self-respect, I think.
Yeah.
How do you feel like Charlie could be easier on himself or better appreciate the awesome work he does?
I don't know if he's just his self-esteem's low because his podcasting numbers aren't quite where he wants them
it's
to
not
be.
low. Come on, he was
Well,
the
they're
first
not low.
guest. He was the first guest on Gavin's podcast. Gavin thought of him.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
this is a huge deal, but I just mean that Charlie might have like imposter syndrome. I think a lot of people fall prey to that, and I think Charlie his platform and empire is already incredible from our perspectives, but for a guy like him, he might just feel like he wants even bigger numbers, and that's awesome too. That's a sign of ambition, and I think that's beautiful too.
So when Gavin does chime in during this episode, a lot of it is asking for advice, and he mentions that the Democrats are going on a strategic retreat.
Yeah.
A lot of folks were talking about that Carville article where he talked about
Roll over and play dead.
roll over. But in essence, he
Well, I
said
think
that. I
that's
think
what
it
he
was a
said, though, right?
strategic
Yeah.
retreat, right? And then come back and strike when hot. And I immediately, no BS, thought about you, who's just 24/7 flooding the zone, back to my 13-year-old, owning this space every day, getting a convert.
So right now we have Republicans that can, basically work without opposition here.
Yeah.
And Newsom didn't feel entirely comfortable being on that side. He was saying, I feel like this is kind of a crazy idea.
Yeah. He thinks you got to get out there, and I think this is totally right, is you got to be doing a podcast at least once a week. Absolute bare minimum. And Gavin's the only, I guess, political player on the field, on the left side of the field right now, I guess, who's willing to take that risk and put himself out there and launch a podcast.
Yeah, because think about this. A strategic retreat means the algorithm is going to destroy you.
Yeah.
When you stop posting content, when you've retreated from, stories daily,
Yeah.
being online daily, people are going to forget who you are. You're going to lose followers.
Yeah.
You're going to lose all that forward momentum.
You think the algorithm's going to give you a warm hug when you decide to come back to it? No. Why would it? You treated it shittily. Why would it treat you well?
So I think Gavin is recognizing that, which is a promising sign of
Yeah.
his podcasting career, saying, no, Democrats need to be making content right now.
Yeah.
And we need to be hitting it hard. We need to be hitting it fast. And Charlie said, I think what any content creator would say to someone who's kind of in a slump right now, he said, you guys just need to get better ideas.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
If your content isn't working, you need to reshape the kind of stuff you're posting.
That's right.
So I think maybe it's just like, hey, for the Democrats, the algorithm doesn't love your guys' content right now. Can you change it? Can you spice it up? Are they really hitting trends? What kind of hashtags are they using?
Yeah.
There's so much more that goes into it, but it's like, get better content ideas. They have so many think tanks. They can't really pay
Conjure
for
up-
better
Yeah. Think of
content
just
ideas.
something that's more exciting and eye-catching, eye-popping on as people scroll.
Because politically now, if you have good content, post it consistently, you will win. That turns into content clout, turns into political clout, which then you can reinvest back into podcasting clout.
That's right. And then for the next segment of the episode, I mean, Gavin shows us what kind of host he is. Like he opens the floor to Charlie, asking what kind of issues Democrats should dig into or avoid, and he plays a bit of a mirror to Charlie on a number of these discussions.
That's right. We were critiquing Gavin earlier in this episode saying, you're the host. It's your podcast. We want to know about you. And he finally opens up. He gives us a number of fast facts. He says, he got into college because he was left-handed and he could, hit the baseball a bit.
And a guy who got into college only because I was left-handed and could throw a baseball a little bit or hit the ball for a little bit.
He said that he doesn't think trans people should be allowed to play in sports.
Would you say no men in female sports?
Well, I think it's an issue of fairness. I completely agree with you on that.
Yeah.
He says he doesn't know what's going on with the Latinx thing.
Yeah.
He said he was never involved in that.
The Latinx stuff that, by the way, not one person ever in my office has ever used the word Latinx.
So can we finally put that to bed?
Yeah,
we agree?
but where did that even
No
go?
more
I'm
Latinx, everybody.
Well, I just didn't even know where it came from.
Yeah.
He said he's only had one pronoun meeting. He thinks pronouns are horse crap.
I mean, literally, I had one meeting where people started going around the table of pronouns. One.
Yeah, and Charlie cites the core demographic of sensitive, not racist suburban moms whose kids come home crying from school because now they think they're racist. And he gets Gavin to concede that these are voices we need to be listening to.
Sensible, not racist suburban moms
Yeah.
that are like, wait a second, I have a 8-year-old white son. Are you trying to say he's a racist?
Yeah, nuts.
And it creates a backlash
Totally get it.
that then bubbles up, right?
I appreciate that perspective.
Well, I'm afraid that Gavin's voice is one that some people won't be listening to now, because when you say things like, oh, trans people shouldn't be allowed to play in sports, or, oh, I had nothing to do with Latinx, or even, the whole just crapping on pronouns and stuff like that. It's like, Gavin, you're the governor of California.
Yeah.
It's a pretty diverse state. LA's a pretty diverse city. When you're creating a podcast as a governor, you want that to be a reflection of your political leadership.
Yeah.
And saying this is a audio video format that anyone can hop in and listen to.
That's right.
Anyone can enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so when you're singling out members of society and shifting the focus and blame on them in a negative way and saying, yeah, trans people, they're
the root of all our problems.
They're the root of all our problems, and saying, in a way, is it in a roundabout way saying, yeah, I don't think trans women are women.
Yeah.
Because if they're playing in a women's sport, he's saying that they're men.
Yeah.
And so that strikes me as saying, Gavin, do you really even want to have a podcast?
Yeah.
Because
Just whittling away at your base.
those people aren't going to be listening. And why would they?
Yeah.
Okay.
After you just insult them and just deprive them of their humanity. It's not a smart move as a podcaster, especially a budding one.
And ultimately, Newsom's going to have a really hard time podcasting for president if that is his future plan when he's isolating groups of people like this. Come on, you're on an amazing media format. Try to have an open mind.
Yeah.
Isn't that the whole point of a podcast, to exchange
Of course.
ideas?
Yeah.
It's like Charlie's throwing this guy into a, Nelson,
Yeah.
and he's tapping Uncle.
Yeah. Immediately.
It's
without
his-
even fighting back at all.
It's his podcast.
Yeah. I mean, Gavin's got a lot to learn. And, even Charlie gets him on the point at 36 minutes and 35 seconds. He convinces Gavin, he says, I got to get back into the classroom.
All right, I got to get back into the classroom.
No, you gotta get
I
your-
got 6 million kids.
gotta
I have
get your education czar.
1,050 school districts, the largest
you
school
got a lot
system.
Oh,
going on.
Where they get over onto the topic of book bans and what's acceptable in these classrooms these days. And Gavin, he takes the scholarly mindset that Charlie has and says, look, I got to get back on a campus. I got to see what's actually going on in these classrooms for myself.
Well, I think he's almost pitching himself as the lead for a Billy Madison sequel.
Yeah.
But he tries to get on the same page as Charlie, saying, "Oh, look, all that white fragility stuff." He's like, "I was never with defund the police."
And by the way, you're talking to someone who's never supported the defund
No, I'm
police
not saying- I
movement.
know, but
I was
I-
explicit.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think he's trying to, get back into Charlie's camps a little bit, but it doesn't. It really doesn't work.
No.
I mean, he's already created too big of a rift.
Yeah. He also tries building the bridge of loving moms.
I love moms, but this moms, I mean, we don't have to get into Moms for Liberty.
Charlie keeps pinning him to the ground on the issue of just listening to moms. And Gavin says, look, I love moms.
Well, I think him and Matt Rife should hang out sometime and do a podcast together.
Yeah, that would be really funny. I'd love to see how Matt can do some crowd work on Gavin and just riff with him. Because Gavin, I feel like he can be a little stiff. And I think getting him a little
gotta
bit
loosen up.
looser,
Yeah,
more
gotta
of a
loosen up.
humorous mindset could be a lot of fun.
You got to stretch before you wrestle.
Yeah.
Around 34 minutes and 39 seconds, Charlie bumped the microphone.
But I just want to say, you asked the question, what did wokeism look like?
Yeah, I noticed that.
Why doesn't Gavin push back with these moments? Do you think he's just trying to be polite? I feel like he's biting his tongue.
Yeah.
He wants to say something, and he should, because think about it like this. He comes on your podcast, he does damage to the microphones, whatever. That's not the end of it. He's going to go on other podcasts and do God knows what to their mic stands.
Yeah.
Someone has to say something before it's too late.
Yeah.
God forbid he does a podcast with Trump and then he knocks over his podcast mic stand.
God, that would be a disaster.
Right?
Yeah. So after a ton of political back and forth and a couple of spats, Gavin suggests that Charlie should run for office. I mean, he has truly cultivated an awesome following by going around to these campuses and destroying kids and then posting to TikTok. And he's like, Gavin points out that he actually is very recognizable in like Arizona. He's got name recognition and everything. And then, yeah, they talk about the success of TikTok and whether Charlie was always supportive of TikTok or whether he was on the side of thinking it should be banned. Charlie says, I was. And then Gavin cuts in and says, and then did Trump convince you? Or did Trump tell you to not go for the ban anymore?
By the way, should we ban TikTok? Are you?
No, we should not. I used to say that, and then I started.
Yeah, why'd you change your position? Because
Well,
it's
it's really
politically
interesting.
expedient, or Trump told you to?
Well, no, definitely wasn't Trump. I sent out a tweet.
And he gets Charlie there. He pins him down for a quick second. Charlie goes, no, it wasn't Trump. I just, the platform has been very helpful for me.
Well, it's tricky because, when you have such a huge inspiration in your life, sometimes it can be hard to differentiate like the ideas and personality that comes from that, and then you as your own person.
Yeah.
I think when Charlie makes so much about Trump, the audience is left wondering, well, what does Charlie think? I mean, look, we know what Trump thinks on a lot of things. He's very vocal about it. But with Charlie, part of podcasting is getting into the root and the light of your soul of who are you as a person?
Yeah.
When you wake up, what's the first thing going through your mind? And before you close your eyes at night, what's the last thought in your head? Do you worship love? Do you worship fear? How do you put your pants on in the morning? How do you like your eggs? These are all things I want to know on a podcast. You know, we didn't get into Charlie's favorite sports, right? We didn't get into if Charlie's a mustard or ketchup guy.
No.
We didn't even get into does Charlie have any pets?
Yeah. No, we didn't learn that.
All of those kind of questions and topics are crucial to the podcast.
Yeah.
And we don't know anything about Charlie.
Yeah.
And if anything, I think he used a lot of the politics as distraction.
Yeah.
To get us away from who he really is.
He didn't want to open up about himself.
I think he clamps down.
Yeah.
I think he kind of throws on this persona because, again, the only thing we know about him and what he likes to do in his free time is just totally blast these kids at college campuses and throw it online and then have complete strangers, dogpile onto these, 17-year-olds who aren't even sure who they are in life and seeing them absolutely get spit roasted on the internet.
Well, and he does like going to church. He is a God-fearing man.
Well, he certainly is. And Gavin Newsom is not. He wasn't afraid to take the Lord's name in vain, which he did at least 5 times during this episode.
Yeah.
Which Charlie was appalled by.
Yeah.
He was apoplectic.
Jesus Christ. Here we go. Right? Are we going to
Stop
get a little...
using my Lord and Savior in vain like that,
forgive,
man.
Jesus, there's hope.
Gotta stop saying that.
Jesus, on that,
Again,
Charlie
with
Kirk.
Thou
on that-
shalt not take the Lord's name in vain.
Jesus Christ. Well, I'll get over it.
Yeah, he got riled up every time Gavin did. Or well, I guess he let him have the first couple of Jesus Christs. But then, the fourth one rolled around and Charlie's like, you've said it so many times already. Like, come on, thou shalt not take the Lord's name in vain.
Now, I found his outburst at Gavin for using the Lord's name in vain a little bit ironic because just minutes before, he was chastising the libs for being, this new kind of political hall monitoring party.
You guys have an elevation of like, hey, we're just going to have a small subset of a minoritarian hectoring hall monitor assistant principal vibe of people telling you that you're not allowed to say these words and you can't say that. And we call that political correctness, which in and of itself is hyper-authoritarian. So
where they're, cancel culture and, just locking down on free speech and saying, oh, you can't use that word, or you can't say this, or you can't say that. But when Gavin decides to play around with the Lord's name, that really triggers Charlie.
Got to be a clamp down. Got to shut that down pretty quickly.
Now, podcasts being the masculine format they are, the equivalent of 2 men meeting up in the woods for a knife fight.
Yeah.
But what happens if one of them wants to play dirty?
Oh.
Because Charlie thought that they were going to show up with some, blades.
Yeah.
And he turns around and Newsom is shoving a Glock into his mouth.
Just raw steel.
Saying, get down on your knees and start sucking on this barrel before I blow your brains to smithereens.
He says, I'll say Jesus Christ as many times as I'd like.
That's
choir
right.
boy.
That's right. And he says, you're a little matriculant.
Yeah.
Out here in the woods and no one can save you.
Yeah.
So what happens then when Charlie starts looking around saying, you can't say that. You're in the woods.
Yeah.
No one can save you but you. That's what makes this such a masculine thing.
You're scared, Charlie? You're scared of your opponent taking the Lord's name in vain? Why don't you pull out a bazooka from your back pocket and call Gavin a slur? Go for it, man. This is a brawl. You're tumbling.
So Charlie's offense wasn't totally flawless here, okay?
Yeah.
He's got to up his game for next time he comes back on the podcast.
Yeah.
And it's important because the boys were talking about how politics and culture are really starting to intersect now.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if they meant podcasting and culture, because podcasting is inherently a political thing.
Yeah. And it's also a cultural thing. So I think that...
So it should have just been podcasting.
Yeah.
Began to intersect with podcasting.
Yeah.
We've reached the singularity of podcasts, in other words. Now, look, 8 out of 10 of the top podcasts are conservative. Charlie was quick to, bring that up. So if anything, now he's got to work extra hard to differentiate himself, because now he's saying, there's 7 other guys on top of me. How do I make my stuff unique?
Yeah.
If 8 out of 10 of the top podcasts were liberal, then it'd be way easier to stand out.
Yeah.
So if anything, I think he was kind of saying this as a reminder to himself of, hey, I got to really just eviscerate these children on college campuses in new and exciting ways.
Yeah.
To get more views.
Yeah, and he pointed out that his content does penetrate outside his bubble, like the conservative bubble.
Long-form podcasting does penetrate different audiences, right? And our show does very well.
It has insane reach to people outside of the conservative spheres, and I think that's definitely helped him with his empire.
But Gavin is saying, he doesn't really live in a bubble either, though, because, he's helped out conservatives. He's crossed his party line. He said that he helped a fellow podcaster, Bill Maher, get on a college campus when he was a lieutenant governor.
Back when I was a lieutenant governor, I think Bill Maher was trying to get on the UC campus or something. They were saying Bill Maher was too conservative voice, and we called that out at the time. It completely said, but it's
because the college campus was saying, "Oh, Bill's too conservative."
Yeah.
And Gavin was saying, "No, this grown man deserves to be on a college campus to do whatever he wants to do."
Gavin said, "Give me a break. This guy's too conservative." I mean, Charlie's out here just smearing these kids.
And it's deeply unfair that these liberal institutions are deciding what grown men can just show up on college campuses full of 17-year-olds.
Yeah.
Okay? This cancel culture has to end.
Yeah, cancel culture has gone too far, and that was one of the many things that Gavin and Charlie agreed on. And then we got into the fact that Charlie doesn't drink. And this was a bombshell to Gavin. Gavin had to ask him a couple times, "You don't drink? Really?"
First of all, I don't drink, but yeah, I mean, like...
Well, you don't drink at all?
I mean, no.
By the way, that's interesting.
Yeah.
You don't?
No.
Never have?
I have, yeah, a couple years
What
ago.
happened? What, a couple years ago you stopped?
I stopped, yeah.
Why'd you stop?
I just wanted to be more successful.
I love that.
Because, Gavin is hanging out in wine cellars, all up in the bay.
Yeah, and he's shocked. He looked at Charlie as probably a drinker. He said, "What made you stop?" And Charlie, he takes a beat and he goes, "I just want to be more successful."
Now, is that true, though?
I think he's been more successful.
No, but I mean, generally, is that mindset healthy? To say, if I stop drinking, I'll be more successful? There's tons of successful people who drink,
Yeah.
right?
Name a couple.
I mean, Jesus wasn't afraid to have a little bit of wine.
Yeah.
He should know that, reading the Bible.
Dead at 33. Now, President Donald Trump, he's never let a drop of alcohol fall upon his sweet lips. So, you hear that? The bell ringing? I've got you pinned down, buddy.
Trust me, I can hear the ref blowing the whistle. Now, the boys changed topic, and Gavin asked Charlie if he was a fan of any Democrats. He said he used to be, until Bernie Sanders became a neocon.
Charlie apparently really looked up to Bernie for his anti-war positions, but no longer does now that Bernie really wavered from that. And Charlie, he threw out Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. as other Democrats who, he admires their opinions. And Gavin was like, "Okay, come on. I get what you're getting at here. This is a wash."
What is a wash? Because when's the last time Bernie went to a college campus and just totally washed the kids there?
Yeah.
It's been a long... if he could maybe get into that, he could rebuild some of Charlie's trust, and then maybe they could collab on some posts.
Yeah, or he could start doing some longer form 3-hour podcasts. Now, Gavin really presses Charlie again at the end of the episode to round it out for some pieces of advice on where the Democrats can go from here. Charlie's like, "I'm not going to give you my A+ advice. This is going to be my B or C tier advice because, look, I'm not giving my enemies any real pointers."
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you my best advice.
I
I'll give
want
you
your best
give you
advice.
like the B or C level
Okay,
advice.
give me the B+
All right,
advice.
because
So he laid out some 3 issues that Democrats really needed to define their stances on.
That's right. And the 3 issues were, number 1, he said, you have to start getting tougher with mass deportation.
Yeah.
He said, most people want mass deportation.
Yeah.
Now, Newsom was squirming around saying, well, people want it till they don't.
So
Let
we
me
got
just
that.
go through.
No, I
Vast
get
majority
it.
of Americans want mass deportations. It's just the thing.
Until they don't.
Well, okay.
That's my humble opinion.
Fine.
Until they don't.
Okay.
Yeah.
But, Charlie said, hey, you want my advice? This is it. Second thing, he said trans rights. He said, you have to start demonizing these people, basically.
But on the political advice is that Americans increasingly believe that their good-heartedness and charitable nature towards the LGBT issue has gone overblown, especially with youth sports, youth curriculum, and the chemical castration of our kids when it comes to this medical therapy.
Yeah.
Just saying,
Deny them their existence is Charlie's go-to tactic.
yeah, that's right. Again, we see, Gavin kind of waffling on that, and he's like, well, I said the thing about sports, but Charlie's saying that's not good enough for me.
Yeah.
We got to get tougher on, trans people, which
You're giving me an inch, I'll take a mile from you, buddy.
that's right. I
You
mean,
give me a crumb, I'll take the whole cookie.
he wants the whole insomnia cookie.
Yeah.
And third, quality of life.
The third one, though, is quality of life. Is quality of
I
life.
agree with you on this one, especially.
But look,
no,
I know you
homeless
do.
encampments out of control, unacceptable.
Which he summed up as saying, these homeless people, got to get them out of here. They're stinking up places like San Francisco because, again, the quality of life for people that have to look at them sucks.
Yeah.
We have to move them out.
Yeah.
And with those three things, your constituents are going to start feeling better about you.
Yeah.
They're going to, they would support you in a run for president.
They'll actually show up to vote for you.
Look, if he does those three things, he's not going to have my vote.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty suboptimal advice.
If he does any one of those three things, I cannot support him in his podcasting run for president. Or really, if he wants to keep getting political, I don't know how much I can weigh in with the politics of his podcast.
Yeah. And I do have to respect that Charlie was true to his form. That really was C-tier advice, if not lower. I mean, that was dog shit.
But I think Gavin felt a little betrayed hearing that advice.
Why is that?
Because none of those issues have to do with building a podcast.
Yeah.
Those are all political things.
Yeah.
Gavin wasn't really asking about that. I mean, I think he's pretty much defined his political career and what he's going to do. He had Charlie on kind of to help him juice his numbers.
That's what it felt like.
And so I think he was just asking, trying to be polite about it, but like, am I using the right mics? Do I have the right XLR cables?
Yeah.
How many times should we be posting clips a week? Do we caption clips, right?
Yeah.
And if so, do we throw colors in there for different words? How many times a day do we post?
Do we leak these episodes to like CNN or MSNBC to juice the promo?
Or is that the old guard? Do we go in this, I think he was just saying, do I need to go on Kill Tony for my podcasting career to flourish?
Yeah. That's a hell of a quandary.
And unfortunately, Charlie didn't answer any of those things.
No, really unhelpful.
He got political, and so we had to get a little political on him.
Yeah.
And look, I don't want to have to get political with podcasts. I don't know why the whole hour-long conversation was so political.
Yeah.
Again, I wish they opened up about all kind of things.
Yeah.
Right? I wish I knew what kind of pizza toppings Charlie likes. Does he think Hawaiian pizza is cool?
Yeah, I do think Gavin's podcasting career could be a bit of a rocky road because at an hour and almost 9 minutes, he reveals that he just recently spent 90 minutes in the Oval Office with Trump. And they had I guess, a fruitful meeting or discussion, but they didn't record a podcast. Now, this wouldn't have been a long-form podcast by Charlie's standards, but even a short form would have been nice. Let the people know what kind of brawl this was, how they sparred.
Not even a clip. I mean,
No.
but think about it. He was in the Oval Office for that same amount of time with Biden.
Yeah.
They didn't do a podcast.
No, he's just wasting his time.
He's wasting his time because, again, when you're a governor and you have access to the president and you're not getting content that you can monetize online,
Yeah.
you're a waste of political capital.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's just like, are you in this job for the love of podcasting and content? Or are you actually trying to get stuff done?
Yeah.
Because politically,
Well,
is it...
Yeah. Well, just cut the public serving crap. If you're not going to serve the public some content whenever you can, just doesn't feel like your heart's in it.
Now, Charlie rounded out the episode saying, Trump calls him once or twice a week.
Yeah. That was sweet.
And, he'll take his advice, some of his ideas. Do you think he's nervous to ask Trump if he'd want to do a podcast with him?
Yeah, I do
Because
think
that is a change of relationship where now,
it is.
it's a monetized thing. You guys, because then what if they record something and then he DMs Trump to collab on it, Trump doesn't collab, and then it's just his post and Trump's just tagged?
Yeah.
And what if Trump doesn't share it to his story?
It gets messy.
Do you think he's a little afraid of all that? I mean, it's a big leap into, one of his biggest role models.
Yeah, I mean, I think Charlie could be feeling a bit of insecurity about the numbers of followers he has and whether that's enough for Trump. Because look, they might be good friends, but business is business. And I just don't see Trump really going on a podcast that isn't going to be performing up to his standards. And I mean, he's got very high standards.
That's right. And it's a tricky thing when you have a good friend. They want to make content with you, but it's kind of a thing of like, look, the numbers aren't there yet.
Yeah.
And so maybe we'll see that change. But, they ended this episode with Gavin saying, thanks for having me on his own podcast, which...
Really just... Come on, Gav.
Look, I mean, Charlie was a motor mouth
Yeah.
on this episode. It was kind of nonstop.
Yeah. He pummeled Gavin. He pounded him into the dirt.
He did. I mean, if this was a wrestling match, he was sprawling
Yeah.
for, 9 minutes
Yeah.
total.
And all you need is that last clip of Gavin ceding his own podcast to Charlie. Really not a great start, Gav. I'm excited to see where you go next, but
hopefully somewhere a little less political. Why doesn't he have some, entertainment people on?
yeah.
Why doesn't he just do some more like content-y type things? Focus on the trends.
Yeah.
Right? Focus on the sound bites.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think all those things could be helpful, but overall, I just want to know more about him.
Yeah.
What he likes to do.
That would have been nice for episode 1. I would say that.
Yeah.
I think, you let Charlie steamroll you a little bit too hard. But there's next week, and there's the week after that, and I'm so excited to see where your podcasting voyage takes you, Gav.
Infinity, because you podcast forever. Once you start this, you can't stop.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about this
Yeah.
format. And for us, we will be covering a new podcast next week. That's right. We've been bouncing around. And, it's fun. I mean, we started off covering Haliey Welch's podcast.
Yeah.
That was incredible. Before that, we were covering
Mr. Beast.
Jimmy's content
His
collection.
content library, not a podcast, but just as epic almost.
But we've been bouncing around. It's been a pretty busy podcasting pilot season. So many new podcasts out there. We just covered Khloe Kardashian's podcast. If you haven't seen that, check it out.
Yeah.
Gavin joining into the world of entertainment.
Yeah.
So many new podcasts out there that we've yet to even check out. So
Yeah. Stay tuned. Thank you for joining us. We hope you have a great week, and we can't wait to have you back next week. So take it easy. And until then, bye.
bye, guys. Thank you.